question for the folks on Zoom is, are there any teachings from the Buddha, and I'll expand that to say the 2,600 year project, Buddhism project writ large, about dreaming and dreams, and is there something there for us, how much to pay attention? So let me just say that if you have an interesting active dream life, especially around lucid dreaming, I would say that's really, it's presenting itself to you to be explored and acknowledged. And then I'll say that there are traditions within the kind of big tent of Buddhism that are really interested in lucid dreaming. So specifically in some strands of Tibetan Buddhism, dream yoga, they call it, is huge in some traditions. They love it. The funny part is, the primary teaching or insight from Buddhist dream yoga is that when you start to develop that reflex, when you're lucid dreaming, you do that thing where you're like, am I dreaming? And it's like, and you can imagine, this is a very similar loop to when you're sitting and you're like, what's happening right now? What am I doing right now? This is awareness looping back on itself. What's happening now? What am I doing now? And even more so, or maybe more challenging and provocative and interesting, is from the historical Buddha all the way down to now, the teachings say something really at odds with how we are to understand our very modern secular scientific world, which is, your life is like a dream. And there's nothing that you could empirically do or say or prove in a lab to show that this isn't a dream. The great Western philosophical tradition does that whole brain in a jar thing where they're like, you could all just be made up by me, which is pretty on brand for the narcissistic Western philosophical tradition. But it does present an interesting question. So the primary insight from the dream yoga, philosophically speaking, and for our practice, runs something like this. When you practice, be present to whatever arises with equanimity, with kindness and openness, without picking and choosing, right? We do that kind of stuff all the time. And then when you get off the cushion, regard everything as a dream. It's just a big show. In the end, everything that's arising within the field of our senses is arising in our awareness. Every experience you've ever or will ever have is an experience in your awareness. So, the ancient Zen question, if a tree falls in a forest and no one's there to hear it, doesn't make a sound. So it's an invitation to a more porous way of looking at our life, which is more in harmony with not taking ourselves super seriously all the GD time, because you don't need to. And actually life is a lot more fun when you relax a little bit. So yeah, you could go online right now and find countless books, podcasts, audio recordings about dream yoga, and it's predominantly in the Tibetan tradition that they really get into it and like it a lot. Great question. But for everybody, even people who don't get into dream yoga, I feel like it's a really valuable insight to, when you sit on the cushion, you're like, hey man, I don't need to get weird about anything that happens within my sit. I'm just sitting. Like we say, nowhere to go, nowhere else to go, nothing else to do, no one else to be. The final one of those that I don't say, this is from meditation master Ayakema. She's a very prestigious meditation master nun. The final line she would say to herself is, I'm just sitting. And so just think about that. You go to work, someone looks at you funny. It doesn't have to mean a damn thing. Somebody has a bumper sticker you don't like and they're, going slow ahead of you. May you be happy. So, thank you. Great question.